Hello there, Salim Omar here from the eCommerce Money Map podcast, bringing you another special guest. I'm super excited. I've got Mr. Stef Van Boekel with us today. Stef, welcome.
Hi Salim, thanks for inviting me.
Stef is reaching us from all the way from Italy, and I'll quickly share with him his background, and then we'll dive right into the questions. So, Stef's been active in the field of international business for the last 17 years, and since 2011, he has specialized in international commerce and the operations that come with that. He has helped numerous B2B and B2C organizations to position themselves internationally. So, from small companies to Fortune 500 companies. Steph's worked in over 20 European countries and he's lived in five. He lives in Tuscany, Italy, while traveling monthly throughout Europe to meet with clients, suppliers, and partners. And so, with that said, Steph, last 5 years in Italy and originally from the Netherlands. How's life in Italy?
Well, what if you're asking if I drink wine during lunch? That happens more often than in the Netherlands, that's for sure. So life in Tuscany is exactly what you think it is. The life is good, the climate is good, everybody really loves life after work. But it also has some disadvantages, such if you, for example, from the Netherlands, where you really love work. And actually, for example, after 5 o'clock, talking about work is almost forbidden in Italy. While, for example, in the Netherlands, when I visit my family, it's one of the first questions you ask, hey, how are things at work? So it has some benefits, but also some disadvantages, but that's like everywhere else. But today I'm happy and I'm looking forward for the next at least 2 years to stay in Italy.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Super. So you help US e-commerce businesses expand their operations internationally.
Yes, correct.
Why why is it important to think globally, to think internationally?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to really realize for especially for Americans, but the world becomes one open playing field. When you're from Europe or the Netherlands, where I'm from, it's much more visible that borders are disappearing. So the market is growing, but also the market of competition is growing. And I believe that a let's say mature brand that wants to grow should start thinking about going international to avoid him being a local hero today, but not being a local hero in 10 years from now.
Mm, got it. Yeah. Now, when you think about internationally, when it comes to e-commerce businesses, what countries, what regions, what continents are you thinking about?
Well, if you ask about the large market, for example, in Europe, it's, for example, Germany, but Germany is also one of the largest global economics. But also the UK and France, Italy, Spain are quite large countries. So, for example, those 5 countries that I just named are already total over 420 million consumers, which are very much used to buy products online. So it's a very large target market, one, but what people don't really realize that the average spending per person in Europe is higher than the rest of the world. So also it is in general, from a revenue perspective, a very large market.
Okay, so that's something really, really very important that you just shared, that the spending in Europe is larger than the spending in America.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, kind of give us a sense of how much larger is it? 10%, 20%, 50%?
Well, if you look at, for example, how many people live in the US, like 300 million, something like that.
I think 350 million is kind of when I last remember seeing it.
If you look, for example, let's discuss Amazon. Amazon is by far the number one e-commerce platform in the US. I think they control almost 50% of the total e-commerce market. And with Amazon alone, you're able to reach, let's say, 300 million or 320 million consumers. If you look at Amazon in Europe, we are more close closing, let's say, reaching almost 450 million users. So that's over, let's say, 30% larger than the US market. Not saying that the revenues in Amazon.com are now higher, but let's say from the number of online users, it is definitely much larger. And there you also, for example, see that if you look at the US market versus Europe, because Amazon, as an example, again, has been existing for what, 27, 28 years in the US, while in some countries it's just, for example, last 2 years they launched in 4 new countries. So you have a sort of a first movers advantage while having with a lot of learnings that the US companies had over the last 27 years. So that gives a bit of an insight about the size of the market and also a way how to look at the opportunity itself.
Wow, that's great. So more number of users in Europe when we look at Europe as a
Plus
region.
the spending, like I said, is also larger. But I think not only from the market perspective in general, let's say for the market size is important, but I think also one of the reasons what we see is that the success varies per country. And if you have a larger catalog and you have some products that are selling well in North Europe and some are selling in South Europe, at the end you create a much more stable business because you're no longer depending on a trend in a certain country. So by going cross-border, reaching multiple countries, you're actually stabilizing your business also from that perspective.
Got it. So an e-commerce business in the US watching this, listening to this, and they've been doing business, their customers are in America or in North America. What would be a couple of reasons why they would not want to go to Europe? I mean, it seems kind of obvious that we are broadening our market. There's additional opportunities. What are like a couple of reasons why somebody would say, no, I'm just going to stick here? Is there something obvious that I'm missing here?
Of course. I mean, Europe is not a country. So, you need to, and there's also no European strategy. There's only such thing as a local strategy. So if you want to start selling in Germany and you want to offer, for example, next day delivery, you need a warehouse in Germany. If you want to store your products in Germany, you also need a German VAT number. So that means you need a German accountant, you need a German customer support, you need a German marketeer. So you need a small team just to be able to conquer the German market. And then if you think about over 20 countries, you can imagine you need quite a large organization to have that to start selling. But it's not that you say, okay, I will start in Germany, but I will hire my customer support in a year because there is no revenues to pay them and there is no work in the first year. So that also not going to work because people are going to need customer support. So the challenge in general is that you need to start investing in a local setup without actually having a proof of concept of having revenues to pay the salaries or having work for them to hire the people locally. So those are often that's the biggest hurdles that people see. Okay, there's a local strategy, there's a local team. You need different service providers in this scenario. You want to outsource the operation. So it's not a very simplistic activity. There are a lot of things that you need to organize from a compliance perspective, export perspective, and then the local operation.
Yeah, that's great advice. Would you say to start, for somebody looking to expand to Europe, should they start by country, like figure out one country and then do the second and third and so forth?
Really depends on the company itself. But my playbook is as follows. So in general, I don't have a preference in which country. Yes, Germany is by far the larger market, but everybody thinks like that. So it could also be the most competitive market. So I would start with doing analysis on the market size and the competitor analysis to recognize and the price strategy obviously also to start recognizing, is there enough market, one, is there enough margin, two, and three, is my product competitive? Once you know, if you start, for example, analyzing 5 to 8 countries, you can recognize what are my top 3 countries. And then you can start thinking, okay, what do I need to be able to start supplying those countries? And then you can make a roadmap back. So I always, most of the companies start from their own strength. Okay, we have a good operational team, we have a good this. So it's more easy to open up that country because we have somebody that speaks that language. But actually, I always advise the opposite. First, make sure you can make your money, and then you start calculating back what it is necessary to start working in that market.
Got it. Cool.
Then that
Yeah.
said, on average, we launch in 3 countries because it has 2 reasons. One reason is because if you launch in one country and it's not successful, you're often not motivated to go to the second. And the third is, on average, we are much more successful because, as, like I told you in the beginning, some products sell well in France, but not in Italy, or the other way around. And when you, let's say, diversify risk and opportunity, you see that on the long term and also on the short term, you're gonna see quicker result. When in general companies are making money, they're more stimulated to stay and keep investing and develop the market.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Would you have some sort of a percentage or ratio when you look at US companies and you look at, say, 100 US companies? How many of them do you see that when you've done the analysis that they would benefit from being in Europe? Is it all of them, or is it a smaller fraction or a larger percentage?
The majority, we see big market opportunity because it's just a large market. But the reality is that less than 2% of the US brands start selling in Europe because they find it too complex and they don't want to hire 5 agencies, etc. But the majority actually has a really large opportunity here. Normally, we say we should be targeting minimum 50% of your US sales also in Europe. Why? One, the market is there, but two, there's also less competition. So we are very strong within marketplaces like Amazon. So let's take Amazon as an example, so everybody really understands. Amazon has 2.5 million sellers. So that means that there are 2.5 million companies selling every day on Amazon.com. In Europe, it are 1.1 million sellers divided over 9 countries. So you can imagine that there is less competition. Less competition means also less marketing budget to spend to make sure your products are visible. So from that perspective, you see that a lot of US brands are much quicker getting traction in Europe versus the US roadmap that they had previously, simply because they have the experience. One, so they know what's the target market, which campaigns were successful in the past, and two is that again there's less competition. At the end, it obviously, because the market, for example, on Amazon is smaller, but there are a lot of other marketplaces that actually make the total market size quite interesting and even bigger than the US.
Got it. Yeah. Any particular sectors that do better internationally in Europe than others?
I think every region has its own, let's say, industries that they are famous for. For example, Italy is famous for the wine, as an example, right? So if you say which US companies are really strong in Europe, it is quite diverse. But I would say non-food products in general, not too high chemical products, because then you need certificates for the import. And then then let's say the rest still remains the same as an interesting market.
Yeah, this is really very insightful.
And as well, bulky products. I had a guy that is really successful in selling toilet paper. And I said, well, to start importing toilet paper in containers from the US, I don't think it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
It's better to focus on what smaller items with a higher value than very large items with low value.
Got it. Great. Good.
So
Shifting
there is
gears.
sort of a practicality. Let's say that you need to sort of a sanity check to start recognizing, does it make
Yeah.
sense to start distributing?
Got it.
And a majority also from the US companies that we work with, they actually produce in China. So instead of then
Mm,
importing from China to the US and then from US into Europe, we often
right.
okay, we just do the pickup in China and we immediately bring them to Europe.
Right.
So we then make a cost price analysis. What does kind of impact does it have? And also, often you see it can be even the same price or lower.
Right. Right. Great. So shifting gears, I'd love to hear from you some advice to e-commerce entrepreneurs, things that you've observed, you've seen working with e-commerce brands. What are a few things you'd say, hey, do, uh, in terms of advice?
Well, yeah, over the last 10 years, I've helped more than 100 companies to launch brands through e-commerce platforms. I think the number one is know your market. Understand that there's a market, not because you like it, but you can actually see demand for your solution. That is
Mm,
number one priority. Then two, know your margins. Why is that important? Because there are variable costs within e-commerce, such as warehouse, taxes, etc., that varies per product on product and country level. And specifically within e-commerce, there are a lot of variable costs, right? So if you're in the B2B trade and you send a pallet, it's not happen too often when a product gets returned. But for example, in some consumer categories, you have up to 10 or 15% even returns. And if you then have returns from cross-border countries, for example, it's going to really impact the margins. So margins are crucial. And then I think third is finding professional partners to be able to outsource your business because you're unable to do it yourself. And you need local experts to really make a difference. Because if you're not going to start working on a professional level, the consumer will recognize it. And then basically e-commerce is logistics for a big part. How quickly will I get my product? Can I easily return it? Can I ask for a track and trace? Can I change the address, etc.? And once you really have that fine-tuned, then you're able to, keep the consumer happy. And the consumer happy basically means also positive reviews. And people have often three ways of looking for a product: best sold, most positive reviews, and best price. Well, with best price, you don't want to compete because there are Chinese sellers or Asian sellers that are able to always focus on price. So you want to focus on best experience and most positive
mm,
reviews. So important that you then do it really with a local approach. And I think the last thing is that you will lose money for sure in the beginning. You need to go through a learning curve before you actually start understanding how to operate your business, and that's fine. It's going to be stressful. You're going to sleep a lot of evenings, not nights. And if you have a family, they won't like it because you're often, let's say, away in your mind thinking about your business.
mm.
But if you go the extra mile and you keep on learning, you keep on hustling, then at the end, you're going to start recognizing patterns. And then at the end, you're going to have a good business.
Hmm, got it. And is this, Steph, the resource that you provide? You like boots on the ground in Europe. You bring that expertise to the US e-commerce business owner. Is that
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
what you do, and you help them? You help them get into that new market, or at least do the feasibility.
Yeah, we are really an e-commerce operator, and we do everything on the on the ground, let's say, indeed what you say. So we act as import of record, we act as merchant of record. Basically, what that means is that we are responsible end to end for the full setup in Europe. You only need to make sure the stock is available for us at the pickup in China or Mexico, America, whatever it is. And every month we will show you the total revenues that we did, and you can invoice us the receivables. So we really develop the European brand. We lead and operate the European business, making sure that the US brand can focus on its product development and the local market and other sales channels. And we are really that European partner that opens up the European market with one single partner.
Got it. And should somebody be exploring internationally? Do they need to be in a certain revenue size, you feel already that they're right for a global expansion?
If you ask us which target market size we target, let's say, 1 million plus a year type of revenues. If you ask me who is suitable to go cross border, those are basically two profiles. One, it's a mature brand that is ready to grow because the products reach a certain maximum growth. And the second are the products or the brands that are seeing a lot of interest in their products and they want to be ahead of the competition. So they basically want to have a first movers advantage, making sure they're the one conquering the European market.
Yeah, that's great. Man, Steph, this was, really very useful, very insightful. Really appreciate you sharing all the information that you did. What's what is the best way for somebody to, a listener to connect with you?
Well, we have a very simple domain. It's called o1.eu. So it's like two characters .eu, o1.eu. There you can find our website and you can reach us. And the other way is, for example, on LinkedIn. My name is Stef Van Boekel. It's a little bit more difficult to remember. But those are the two options to reach out.
Awesome, great. So, final words of wisdom for our listeners.
Just do it. Just do it and keep on hustling. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. And but be analytical about the decisions that you made. And then at the end, you're gonna look back and you're gonna be happy with all the shit you went through.
Yeah, yeah. When somebody reaches out to you, what's the first thing you do? Is there like a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation or something like that where you're kind of
Exactly,
asking some
just talking,
questions?
where are you, where do you want to be? And that's step
Mm,
one. And step two is, and that's something that we offer for free, is doing an analysis. Does the
mm.
market actually exist? One, and two, what are your receivables on product and country level? So we're actually gonna, as a free analysis, we're gonna check, okay, your product being sold for $34. For example, if you would sell it for the same price in France, Italy, Spain, UK, what will you actually get paid after the local tax, the local storage, the local shipments, etc. So when we're going to be talking for the second time, you understand the size of the market and the margins able to make.
Yeah, it really makes sense for folks. I encourage folks to kind of take up that free offer and really just see if there's a new opportunity that's sitting
Also for us, I
in
mean, we are
Europe.
not consultants. We are not interested in selling our business against the hour rate. We are really partners. So we also want to make sure that there is a nice business that we can work on together.
Right. Very good. Steph, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this our conversation today.
Thank you, Salim. I'm happy with the questions, were good questions, and I hope to come back more often in your podcast.
Awesome. All right. You take care.
Thank you.